This video is sponsored by Nanlite. Okay, so in this video we are going to break down all the cinematography from my latest short film, Goodbye Kiss. I'm sure at this point you've seen the short film, but if you haven't, if you're new to the channel, you might want to go watch that now. It's in the description below. Probably watch that first, so then you'll be able to see what we're talking about when we're breaking this down. So I'm just going to scrub through the timeline here and show you how we lit each shot the most efficient way possible. I don't have behind the scenes footage for every single shot, but I think I remember mostly of how we shot and lit it. And what's kind of different about this short film is I did some different lighting techniques that I normally do on the channel. You know, lighting for like a narrative film is a little bit different than lighting for commercials. I approached it a little bit differently, especially because I was acting in it and DPing it. Yes, I did have my friend Corey cam opping for me, but I was the one that trying to like think about the light a little bit and like how it was going to fit into the story. And it's a lot harder to do all that at once. So I definitely was a little bit more efficient with my lighting on this than I was about making everything look super pretty and pristine, which sometimes you don't want anyways when it comes to a narrative film. You actually just want it to look kind of like natural and lend itself to the story, less than trying to be pretty like a commercial shot would be. So just kind of keep that in mind when you think about other techniques I've talked about on the channel and what we actually did with this film. So here is the start of the film. We open with the shot inside the Tesla here, the Model 3. It's raining outside. For this, we really didn't do much. You can see the shot here.
I don't expect
This was just a digital
every time my sister
zoom.
calls, but I just wanted to talk to you.
Let's
I know you don't want
move
Ryan's
that
medical.
track there. So we have rain in the background, and so the first thing that you're going to want is we're going to want a little bit of light being motivated from the street lights or the parking lot light or whatever coming from the back side of me to kind of edge me out of the frame. It's very dark, right? It's a black car, black interior. I'm wearing all black. It's really setting the mood here, right? It's really establishing where we're at. We know it's nighttime now, and we have some practical lighting behind me. Really simple. We actually did park the car on the other side of a street lamp, but we needed to obviously throw that light further into the car and have more control over it. So I think all we used for this was actually just a 4-foot Nanlite RGB tube. If we scroll down here quickly to the behind the scenes, you can see right here, that's all we have. And to prevent it from getting wet from the rain, because I don't believe these are waterproof and I didn't want to take the chance, we just took a plastic bag that I had from another light and we just kind of wrapped that around the light so water could hit the light and we could still control it pretty easily. That worked out actually really well. I would recommend that for anyone in the future. Just, you know, bag your lights, bag your camera, whatever you got to do to get the water off of it. So that's what's going on here. We just have it kind of edging around my head there. And I don't think we even moved it. I think that for this opening shot, we did not move it when we went to the close-up here as well. So if we come back to this. So all that really does is the street light and that backlight there helps to make the rain show up on screen and then also edge out the steering wheel. You can see a little bit of light coming from the phone, obviously, and then on the computer screen to add a little texture. But that's really it for that one. We didn't actually add any fill or anything like that. We might have shot this at 1250 ISO, you know, the dual gain on the Pocket 6K. This was shot on the Pocket 6K. Actually, we should probably talk about that. It was shot on the Blackmagic Pocket Cinema Camera 6K. And then we also used my Canon FD lenses, my vintage lenses that have been modded for video use. This shot was on the 24mm, probably at f2 or f1.4. That's usually where I keep that lens. 1.4 is really soft on that lens, so I try not to shoot at 1.4 that often on it, but sometimes it looks really nice, so we do it anyways. So the next shot is just that same shot, but we're punched in on my face. And so what we did here actually is we just left that Nanlite Pavo tube up to edge off the back here. And then to get this light coming in here, we had Charlie actually pull in with his truck. And the whole idea here was to establish that there was someone pulling into the parking lot. So rather than trying to fake that, we just did it practically. We just actually had him pull in with probably his bright lights on. No, actually his brights were too bright if I remember, because we were shooting on the dual gain switch, probably at 1250 ISO. So here, and so that actually just shines in, backlights all of that rain there. Very simple. A lot of stuff with narrative filmmaking can be simple. You're just trying to tell a story, right? So just use the practical things that you can first, and then when you need to accentuate things or give it a mood or whatever, make the lighting a little bit more pleasant, that's when you bring in your film lights. That's all we did here. We did not do anything extra to make that work. Same thing for this. This is actually just the street light outside. edging me. This was just all planned, right? We put the car in the right spot. We made sure the car was under the light at the right spot, where I walked in the right spot, and then we actually had his headlights turned on to kind of backlight the whole situation and light up the whole parking lot there. And of course, we added a little water to the ground to make it look like it was already raining. But this is what they call like a wet down in Hollywood. You wet down the surface of the ground, even if it's not raining outside, just to give a little bit of reflection on the ground and let that water like give some interest to the scene. So for the most part, this is practically lit for this shot here. But then we come up here, we did end up bringing another nanlite pavo tube on the far side of the car over here. So over here you can see this is where we actually have a 4-foot nanlite over here, kind of just pushing in on the car here, obviously bouncing off the hood here. So if we play that through here, and actually this whole setup did also have a aperture 120D on the back side here. So if we bring up some, so this little light over here is actually coming from an aperture 120D, just with the open bulb on it, basically no softbox or anything. Rain. So you can see we've got the nanlite pavo tube here with the bag on it, shining right in on him for his close-up. So this aperture 120 is just out of frame, backlighting some of that rain, and it's adding a little bit of interest on the back of the car here. So you can see that here. So the same setup we use for basically all of this. Except I'm sure that nanlite was pointing a little bit more at me for this one. And so he only has that nanlite right in front of his face here, just to kick a little light here. We wanted to light from the side to give him a little bit of shadow here, you know, and then this also edges out my hand. So all that it's just one tube. Now it's not the softest thing in the world. It's not the biggest, softest light, but you can tell here in this scenario, it really helps to add a lot of contrast to the scene. And because it's probably, you know, bouncing off the hood of the car too, as you can see here, like, it's bouncing off the hood of the car, so it's actually creating somewhat of a soft bounce on Charlie's face there. And what I like about this too is it adds a nice little eye light right here, you know, because that light's coming in here. We have that little bit of eye light. Oh, that doesn't really work, does it? A little bit of eye light there to make sure, you know, you kind of see that he's alive, and it really motivates the light coming from the street light up here. So the one aperture 120D, you know, the white balance is set for the aperture 120D to be white and kind of bluish over here, but then we have that nan light set to a warmer color temperature, and so that's how you're kind of getting that warm look on his face. Really, so really nothing crazy going on here, just one nan light tube and an aperture 120D in the back, and we just have the car placed right under the street light to make sure we still have a little bit of extra motivated light coming in there. So then if we come through here, this is just that natural street light still. So come back to me, similar thing. I think all we did was just move the 120D around. So for this shot here, you can see what's going on. All we did was just put the 120D on the other side of the car here. So it was over here originally when it was pointing at Charlie, but now it's on this side pointing at me, and you can see in the monitor there. So you can see here, that's all it is. Just that little bit, and it's probably bouncing off the white car a little bit. And so I really like this look here because it just, you know, just rimming the edge of my body here. And then this back here is actually from the streetlight itself. The streetlight's actually coming down on the Tesla in the background and on the ground, and these are just all practical lights in the background. So a lot of this just comes down to scouting and know where you're gonna shoot and how the background looks, and you just kind of fill in those gaps with your film lights. In this shot, all we did was we actually just put a nan light in the car here, kind of right here, really, really low, and that's just kind of spraying up on his face. That's just kind of mimicking maybe the dash lights or something. It doesn't look that realistic, but for me, when they cut together, it's totally sellable. Most people probably wouldn't even notice that continuity. And then even on this shot, we actually did not add any lights to this shot. We just have enough light bouncing off the ground from the street light that's clearly above my head here. So the street light's coming down, edging me out here. And then we just have enough light bouncing off the ground, going up to my face to add just a little bit of fill when I'm walking. Every once in a while you see it. And that's really all that was. Now, I think I couldn't see myself when we were shooting that. I think it probably would have been nice to have a little bit of maybe just a bounce card under there just to bounce a little bit of extra light up in my face. But we were shooting at really high ISO, so it was doing a lot. So it was doing a lot for us already. It was taking that ambient light from the street light and actually just helping us out. And we just got lucky that street light didn't have any weird color cast to it or like weird flickering going on. Okay, so then the next scene here. You can see here it's just my basic living room, and really all this is, surprisingly, and I had to confirm with this, we don't have any behind the scenes footage of this shot, but it's actually just, we've got this one lamp here, which I did on purpose, right, to add a little interest in the room. We put a lamp there that would be there naturally to justify the light. And I like lamps in shots like this because I like that warm light they give off if you balance the camera correctly to give it that orange glow. So we were probably at like a 5,000 Kelvin or something like this when we shot this, maybe 5,600. And I like that because the walls are all white, right? So this can be really boring, but you add a nice color to the scene by just putting a lamp in it with that kind of warm lampshade as well. So that's simply just the light there. Practical light that's lighting all this up. We actually had to go to the Sigma 18 to 35 for this shot. We put on the 18 millimeters because we couldn't get wide enough with my Canon FD lenses to get this entire shot. But somehow that 18, actually I think we were at about 20 millimeters on the lens. And it seemed to get everything for us in this shot. Really fun. This is a big dolly move here. So we're actually on a Dana dolly, and he's panning as we're pulling across my house. A shot that I planned beforehand. I storyboarded it. I planned this all out in my house beforehand, and I thought it turned out really good. Okay, so this lightning that's going on in the background here, we actually have Al, the gaffer, outside my house, outside this window, and he's got one 4-foot nan light tube out there just pushing into the window that's just got, just the white color temperature. It's probably at like a 6,000, 6,500 Kelvin just to make sure it's really nice and white and blue. It's just pushing into this window, and that's giving just a nice natural glow as if there's a light outside or moonlight or whatever you want it to be. It totally sells because then he has another Nanlite Pavo tube in his other hand. He's out there just literally holding onto these. And he has one in his other hand. So basically we have one here, or maybe he has them kind of held up in the air like this. But then one has the lightning effect turned on the Pavo tube. So basically we just shouted to him basically on the phone when we rolled, and then he made that lightning effect happen on the Nanlite tube. So we actually have just this little fill here, and then we have flash. I really like how this turned out because it flashes right when I pass, and then we just have that little glow at the end. So that's what's so cool about like these little Nanlite tubes. I mean, they have these lightning effects on them already built in, so they kind of do that flashing effect for you. Which, by the way, I don't think I mentioned it yet, but this video is sponsored by Nanlite. So if you're looking for some lights like this, I highly suggest clicking that link in the description, but we'll talk a little bit more about that later. So it's these simple things, right? Like we use a practical light at the start of the shot. And then when we move over here, we've got the Nanlite outside the window. And then also right here, my wife Amanda had a good idea. All we did was just put a little candle, a real candle. We lit a real candle and put that in this little, this is actually a pretty old house that I live in. It's like a 100-year-old house. So they have these little old, like little kind of phone cubbies in the middle of the hallway right here. So all we did was put a little candle in there just to give it a little glow. We could have put anything in there, just a little LED light or something like that to glow that. But it's really nice to have this kind of color contrast. So we have the, the kind of orange at the beginning here. And then when I come through, we've got that orange in the hallway and then that kind of blue-white lightning effect at the end. So then when we enter the bedroom here, what we actually did was, obviously, we have another lamp. Yes, it's the same type of lamp. Did anyone notice that? I don't know. Maybe, in this guy's house, he just really likes this lamp. We've got him everywhere. So that's our motivation for this whole scene, and we set that there on purpose, had that on, because we know that the rest of these scenes, the rest of the shots are all going to be motivated from that one light source. But you can see inside this room here, we actually have just a little bit of light on, as if there's a little bit of light outside, a little bit of moonlight or something, just to kind of just give us a little texture in this room rather than letting it go completely black. And actually the reason I did this is because I wanted to show off these plants. I wanted to have a kind of plant motif throughout the film. So in random shots, you're just going to see plants around the house because I wanted to kind of allude to this whole like just kind of follow this idea that eventually my wife is going to become a plant at the end. So I wanted to add a little bit of interest on that and show a little bit of light on that. So in here we actually I think we just have a pavo tube, a nanlite pavo tube. I got to use those tubes. You got to get yourself a set of tubes. Just kind of up in the ceiling in here, just like this. And that's it. I think we had it dimmed down to like maybe 5% or something like that. And it's just, what we do is actually pointing it away from the scene. That's why it's bouncing and it's creating a nice soft source and really just like becoming a natural source in the room. Which helps bring us to the next part here where I have another pavo tube here on the ground that's bouncing off the white wall, and that's actually creating a little bit of wrap on my face and just giving me a little bit of extra kick. If you can see here, you can actually see the shadow up on the wall here. That's from that other nanlite sitting over here, sitting right here, which is giving me a little bit of extra wrap here and then just spraying that kind of orange glow throughout the entire scene over here on the wall here. So all that's from that little nanlite, and it's just all being motivated from this lamp here. So that's probably at like a 2700 Kelvin on that lamp. So that gives you basically the orangest color temperature you can get when you're working on the Kelvin scale, which I really like. It's a trick that I've heard Roger Deakins talk about, how he takes like a tungsten bulb and then dims it down on a dimmer. And when you do that, a tungsten light actually gets less energy and it actually gets oranger. It actually, that Kelvin scale goes lower than the 3200 Kelvin and makes it a lot more orange on your skin tone. So I just basically faked that effect using LED, pumping that all the way to like 2700 Kelvin on the nanlite pavo tube. So basically the same thing here. All we did here was take that same tube and we armed it out over my arm to make it seem like it was actually coming from the lamp itself. So you can see us kind of playing with that here. So we kind of arm it out. We have it kind of pushing off the wall to make it just a little bit softer. I'm just kind of playing with it here. Let's see what our ultimate shot was. Yeah, that's basically it. So all we're doing is just really motivating that light coming from the lamp using our own lights. So the stuff isn't crazy, right? It's just like, oh, where would a light practically be in the room? Maybe, but let's try to kind of have it on the far side of my face to make sure we have a little bit of shape and a little bit of shadow, just like I'm doing right here. So you get the lights coming down here, shadow on this side of my face. Same thing. That's kind of the same idea that we're always trying to do. Let's see if we back up here. And that's when we cut to the close-ups. That's all lit with that pavo tube over the top. And then this close-up here, this is probably my least favorite shot in the whole film. You know, for a close-up shot, for the first real nice close-up shot besides the one in the parking lot of my face, the shadows are kind of funny. I think I would have tried harder to soften this light. You know, I've actually shot in this room before on the channel, and I used a big soft shower curtain to do that shot in the past because it's just a nice soft pleasant light. You know, your lamp would be bouncing off the wall. You can totally get away with trying to make this softer and wrappier, but the shadow on my nose here really is not pleasant. I would say it's pretty distracting. So I would have done this a little bit differently. I think that maybe when we were lighting it, I did have the light bouncing off the wall. But I think I just had to turn my nose a little bit more to get rid of that shadow. But I think while we were filming, we just didn't notice that. And so this shot could look a little bit better. We could also maybe try to darken the background a little bit. I feel like we could have just tried a little bit harder with the shot. But as things go, it was shooting into the night. We're tired. We're probably ready to be done with the day. This kind of stuff starts to happen. I do, however, like that we did keep this lamp on, I believe. So I do have this nice eye light in my eyes that really just like helps sell the liveliness of a human. Make sure you know that they're alive. They don't have dead eyes, right? Because otherwise my eyes would just look pretty black here. So it's nice that I have that going on there. So now we're outside. What's really fun about this shot is that it's a really long dolly shot. So we actually got all the dolly track that we had, which I think is 12 feet of dolly track, 4-foot strips or something like that. Maybe it's 10 feet. You can see that here. He really follows me all the way across on the dolly here. And then he tilts down with me once I get the stuff out of my pocket. So in this shot here, we have an aperture 200D, I believe, right here, kind of looking like a little outside can light. And I put that there to backlight the rain. It's not doing a great job, but we just needed something there. Obviously, we have these practical lights on here. We have all these little Edison bulb lights that we've used to light up the whole porch and really motivate a lot of the light in the scene. But I added this one there just to give that little extra kick. And then I believe we have a aperture nova over here, which is already kind of soft light, but I think we have it shooting through an opal, if I'm not mistaken. Yeah, so we definitely have that nova over here, probably at like a 2700 Kelvin color temperature. We have that shooting through a 4x4 opal. So what this is basically a 4x4 piece of diffusion. Opal is just the type of material that it's made out of. Opal is just a nice way of kind of giving you not too soft, not too soft of a light. Opal's more of like a plastic material. So it's really something nice to use when you're kind of doing daylight, if you're trying to like soften a light outside and make it look kind of like sunlight, because it still has a little bit of sheen still to it. And that's why we're using opal here, as if that's just like what we had handy, honestly, to diffuse it. And so it's kind of acting like there's some sort of light, some sort of street light off in the distance that's coming through the trees, just to give a little bit of extra texture here. So that's coming down here, and so you can see that. That's why we have this little bit of light here, a little bit of light here, and that's what's kind of just adding a little bit of fill, orange fill over here on this patio stuff. And then that also helped us because now it's, lighting up my face a little bit, and it gives us this little bit of light coming down here on the ground. Now, but for this ground shot, we actually did bring in that opal and that light, and we directed it at the ground. I don't know if I have a behind the scenes shot of that or not. Here you can see the full 15-foot dolly though, or not 15-foot, 10-foot dolly that we were using. And that's a Dana dolly. Basically, it's just like skate wheels and a ball head there to put your tripod head on. And you can use that just like you would use like a regular dolly, but it's basically a much easier one-man version of a dolly. You don't have to be sitting on it and have someone pushing you. Really handy for stuff like this. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but really handy. You'd probably keep it forever if you had it in your kit. Pretty sure we brought the opal in closer. The nova and the opal, and yeah, you can see here there's a light here. This is definitely the opal right here, coming down on the ground. What an ass.
Oh no.
To really light up that ground for us and give us some nice color, nice orange color. Now there's a lot of shadow in here because we are shooting at night, and even though that was bright, we wanted it to look dark, like it was still night, and match the continuity of everything. So we brought that in to really just kind of, edge out my hand here and add all that motivated light coming from that street light. And this is, of course, all the color temperature is matching the lights that are on the patio, so everything's a nice warm look for this scene. Probably shot this one on a 35 millimeter f2, whereas that opening one was definitely on the 24 millimeter. This was a fun one. So this is the morning after. This is probably the first shot I think we actually shot when we set up the day. And on this one we had the 24 millimeter on. So we had this Nanlite Forza 500 here with the can on it, and we had that probably at full power shooting the back of this leaf here. And then we actually took a little bit of water and spritzed it on the leaf just to give it a little bit of glistening, something for that light to actually refract off of. So that's really all that was. What was great about this, so this is the Nanlite Forza 500. 500 watts of power is a lot of power. It's really helpful when you're shooting outside. So of course we're in a semi-shaded area here, and then we backlit that water because we know that that's the best way to edge out water or edge out something, is to backlight it so you can really see that on camera. So we put it kind of high in the sky as if it was the sun or something like that. And that's just coming down here and backlighting that leaf, which is a good time to stop and talk about this light. So the Forza 500 is super powerful. I want to thank Nanlite for sending this out for us to be able to use on the film. It's not often that you get a light this small that it's that powerful. 500 watts was so awesome. You've heard me talk in my other videos. It also has lightning effects on it, and other effects that it can pulse the lights to make it work for different scenarios. So we also use the lightning effects on this, which we'll talk about a little bit later, and that worked out really well. So Nanlite has a bunch of lights like this for filming. They've got the pavo tubes that we've obviously been using for all of this. They have a couple different variations of that. They have a 2-foot and a 4-foot model, and those are full RGBW lights, which means that they can do, you know, the full Kelvin scale from tungsten all the way to daylight. But they also have RGB, so they have colors on them, so you can do, you know, any hue that you're looking for from a color perspective. Those little Nanlite pavo tubes can do that as well. Now the Nanlite Forza 500 cannot, it's not RGB, so it can't do the different colors, but the trade-off is that it's 500 watts, so it's super powerful, and you can basically use it as your sun in most scenarios, and it's going to compete with basically anything. I mean, obviously it's not the biggest light in the world, but it's super powerful. Like right now I'm using it to key myself right here, and I'm at like 10% on this light, and it's pretty bright. So imagine what this light would be like at 100%, and that's what we had outside here to light this shot. And we used the Forza 500 for a bunch of shots outside because we just needed the extra power. The Forza 500 had that. So what's cool about the Forza 500 is that it has this really nice large power bank on it that you can actually put V-mount batteries on it, or you can put the power supply on it and run it right into your traditional socket. And then it also has a mount for your stand, so that whole box can actually mount to your stand, so you don't have to try to hang it and it'll be flopping around like some other companies do. This one actually just latches right into the stand, which is really nice. And then of course it has the Bowens mount on it, so you can use softboxes and the other modifiers on it, which they sell, which is really handy because it's one of those more newer universal style mounts. So I really like this. Also really small, really light. It's made out of like carbon fiber or something like that. And the fan isn't too loud on it either. So I highly recommend this light. So if you're in the market for some new lights, definitely check out Nanlite. I will have their link in the description below.
Got it.
There's no way that we're gonna need 2 takes. Let's just play it back.
Alright.
All right, moving on here. So you can see this shot again. So it's really nice. It really adds a lot of backlight behind it to give, you can really see the texture in the leaf, but we have that coming down right here like that. And that's just kind of, the water didn't work great. Really, you want some sort of like glycerin or soapy water that's not going to create bubbles, but it's going to like stick on there and really shine. We didn't really have that, so this is the best we could kind of do. You know, just to show off that it's morning. It's kind of a dewy leaf, and you actually see the water does drop off of it. Yeah, so right when this shot starts, a little water drops off of it, and you can see all that because we have that light backlighting it, which is great. The rest of it's just natural light. It was a partly cloudy day. So this shot here, same thing, partly cloudy day. I think we might have brought in a little negative fill on this one, so let's bring that up here. So yeah, you can see we actually have negative fill. So we brought in this black solid here to take a little bit of that light off this side of my face to add a little bit of shape. And then we brought in a 4x Ultra Bounce here just to take some of that sunlight here and then bounce it into my face here to fill up my face a little bit, because otherwise all this dark colored stuff and this mulch here would actually act as its own negative fill and suck up a bunch of light hitting my face. So this is kind of our way of giving myself some light. I want to actually say we ended up using the Forza. So yeah, so actually we took the Forza 500 and shot it right into this 4x Ultra Bounce here, which turned into, what is that, a 8x4 Ultra Bounce actually. We got 4 foot this way, 4 foot this way. And then that's bouncing into my face here and really giving me a nice little kick on my face, so you can see that here. Really like this shot. I planned this shot out ahead of time. I believe we're on the 35mm here, and we just kind of pushed in pretty close. And I just really like the skin tones here. We have all this like nice bounce off the ground that's kind of making my skin look nice and warm. I think that one turned out really good. It definitely sells that that's all just natural sunlight when really we shaped that whole shot. This one, just natural light, nothing crazy going on here. These are some pickup shots that I got. It just happened to be partly cloudy outside. But this next shot here is something that we can talk about. So this shot here actually is a day for night shot. So I shot this shot right after I shot the other stuff, basically. Maybe I shot it the next day. I can't remember. I shot it sort of in the evening, but it was extremely bright out still, and all I did was ND down a lot, put a lot of ND on the lens. Still got my exposure to where it wasn't underexposed, and then I just brought down all of the light in post, brought the highlights way down, and then I just took the color temperature and made it just a little bit blue, just to kind of sell that this is like an evening look. And then I added a digital zoom here. But really, nothing special going on here other than the fact that I actually shot this in like, I don't know, 6 o'clock at night when it was still very, very sunny out. And I did not shoot this in the evening. Here, just natural light. I just put it in the right position to where we have a window here in my kitchen that's giving us a soft light here, and then we have the light in the background. I was acting as my own negative fill here, which gives us a little bit of shape here. So nothing special there either. I just knew where to put the camera to make sure I had some nice light on this shot. Just partly cloudy here. This is all in the color grade, really, in the composition. This is on the Dana Dolly. We're pushing across. Really fun shot. I really like the composition of it. And so what's fun about this, when we cut from this shot to this shot was actually done 100% at night. Now, we were shooting all this stuff and we realized that we needed to get this shot. We were not able to get it earlier in the day because we were chasing the sunlight. And so I just thought, you know what? Let's fake it. It's a tight enough shot. We're on the 35mm lens. We can get close enough to it that I think we can make it look like a partly cloudy day. So that's exactly what we did here. Yeah, so we brought the Nanlite Forza 500 in, and we put the softbox on it here and put it right over top the flower here. So pretty simple, right? We're trying to motivate from the skies if there was a partly cloudy day. So this acts as a big, nice, soft source. The closer you get it to the subject, the softer, the bigger that spread becomes. So we got it real close to the subject here. And then we put that little 4x Ultra Bounce here to add a little bit of extra fill rather than trying to take away any more light. We didn't want to make it look too shapely because the idea here is that it's all coming from the sky, which means that there's a ton of fill light all around. So we actually brought that in here to give it a little bit of direction, and then this bounce to just to add a little bit of bounce back into the scene. The reason that we did it like this and not just like two lights smashed in there is like we wanted to have some shape. So when you do a bounce like that, that means that this bounce light's going to be a little bit less intense than the actual key light, just giving a little bit of shape here, and you can see that here. I thought this turned out really nice. We've got that nice soft light coming down on my hand here, and then we also put a little bit of water on the flower here, and so there's just a little bit of beads coming off, lots of little texture. Turned out great. Also, what's nice about this too is because we could shape it like that, we had this nice dark background. Totally believable still, even though it was completely done at night. This shot also didn't turn out great. Kind of the same thing. We needed probably more fill in this shot, but what we did here is we actually had the Forza 500 with a softbox hitting my side of the face here, so it's coming in here. And then we don't have negative fill or anything on this side, but you can see we have that little bit of light coming from the actual sky here. We have real light from the sky, right? And we were trying to wrap that around, but I was also pointing my head down here, which really soaked up a lot of light. So otherwise, so we probably should have brought that light all the way around here in hindsight. So I don't really love this shot, but what I do like about it is that it's a little bit moodier than like a regular outdoor shot. There's not a ton of fill light going around my face, which helps sell the next shot, which is where the storm is about to occur. So here, all I did was add a little fade in post of the exposure. That brings down all the light on that. So this is actually just a regular daylight looking shot. And then I brought down the exposure with the fade. And then we cut to this, which this shot was kind of crazy to do. We actually have the Nanlite Forza 500 in a softbox over here, backlighting our rain machine. And then we have another light, I think an aperture light over here, probably the Aperture Nova over here with the lightning effects on that one on this side. So we kind of have the one light as like a kind of general light to kind of fill up the whole scene, but then we have another light flashing for the lightning effects, which worked out. You can see in both of those lightning effect shots, the one at the beginning and this one, I'm basically having some semblance of ambient light already there, and then we're just accentuating that with lightning after the fact, rather than just relying on the lightning as a whole when it comes in. That way you can see something going on before the lightning actually strikes. Once again, it's just a 24mm lens. A lot of this is 24mm. When you're shooting 2:3:5, aspect ratio with a super 35mm camera, in order to get wide enough, you're probably going to have to be basically on a 24, or you can go wider, of course, but I just kind of prefer 24 when I'm doing it because it kind of splits the difference between a longer focal length and a super wide, like an 18. Same thing here, 24mm. So we're using a lot of natural light here. When I say natural, I'm saying we're using these practical lights here to light me up. And then we also, Corey had this great idea for me putting the flashlight in my mouth to give us just some little extra kick of light going on and to really help kind of like let the audience follow the light. And so we kind of know where I'm looking, and I can use it to kind of focus on things because it's supposed to be dark now because that storm came in as the nightfall happened. So we also have the lightning effect coming from the Nova or the Forza 500. That's kind of flashing the whole time. Yeah, actually we have the Forza 500 flashing light up into the tree and onto me here, which you can see. But then back over here, we actually have a Nova, the Nova, Aperture Nova, way up in the air pointing down, acting as that street light. We kind of tweak the color temperature just a little bit to kind of give it a little bit of color contrast. Doesn't completely follow the continuity of everything, but what's fun about this shot, if we scroll back, this little close-up I got on my own on a random day later. Kind of the same thing. It really, I don't think it was even nighttime out. It was fairly dark, and I was able just to take a little nanlite pavo tube with a lightning effect to backlight the flower, and I just threw in my own ice to give that hell look to it, and I just had a little bit of ambient light outside. That's it. So once again, it was just kind of doing what I had to do there. And it all cuts together. It looks like we shot them back to back. Same thing here. So what's fun about this one is so I've got that flashlight in my mouth, which is kind of helping draw your attention to different things. You can see on this next shot, I actually use the flashlight. I take it out of my mouth and I point it down right here. Yep. So here we got it. We do this kind of Zack Snyder effect. I've got the flashlight in my hand and I'm pointing it out at a little 4x ultra bounce, like the one we were using earlier, to fill up my face. So you can actually see, so this light's going this way and then it's refracting back softly and it's giving me a little bit of light on my face there. And then I use the flashlight to point down and the flashlight lights up the flower for us. And then when I pull it back up, it draws the attention of the eye, and then shooting back into that ultra bounce just off screen here to give myself just a little bit of light on my face here. So just choo choo. And then we have that little lightning flash in the background, same lightning flash we've been using the whole time. So for this shot, I actually did this on a pickup day, so I don't have any behind the scenes footage of it. I think we have the natural light coming from over here, and it was fairly, 7 o'clock at night. The light was a little bit low, but it was partly cloudy, so there's not like a bunch of orange light coming from a sunset. But I do believe we have the Forza 500 with a softbox just off camera here, just giving me a little bit of extra kick here to make sure I don't go completely black from the ground below. So that's why it kind of looks like there's two light sources, like there's one coming from here and there's another one coming from here. It's because there is two light sources, but I think it sells pretty well as if there's just a bunch of wrap all around my body from the sky. So here, we've got the umbrella over top of me, which is kind of, it's supposed to be there for the scene, but it kind of adds a little bit of negative fill. It's kind of darkening some of that area for us. This, we did, I believe, have the Forza 500 here, point, just open face, just giving us a little bit of edge on the ground because this was shot during the day, really. And then I just darkened this a lot in post. But in order to have some sort of texture and light, we put that Forza 500 here to give us a little bit of raking, a little bit of light across this mulch here. But here, this was so tricky because the light was falling the whole time, and we were trying to fill in these gaps. You know, use a light when we had to use it, but also try to use natural when we could. So this shot was one of the last shots we got of the night. We've got the ISO cranked up, and we have the Forza 500 just hiding over here in the trees and just giving a little bit of kick on my wife's face here. And if you look really close, you can really tell that there's terrible continuity here. So it's kind of got a warm look. And then this shot on a totally different day. We shot this shot on a totally different day, but I feel like they cut together really well because we just shot at a similar time of night, and then through some magic and color grading, I made them cut together. And so then on this one, just for both these shots, actually, we have the Forza 500 outside and a little bit of negative fill. So we've got the 4x4 floppy on one side of my face, and then we've got the Forza 500 with the softbox on the other side. And we use the same lighting setup for both of these setups, actually. So you can see here, we're kind of tweaking the Forza 500.
Oh, sure. Bug spray.
Get some wrap on my wife's face. And it's pretty much daylight at this point. I mean, it's probably 6 or 7 at night. 7 at night, I think, which the sun doesn't set till almost 9 here right now. So it's quite a bit of light still that we're competing with, and that Forza 500 does great with competing with that outdoor light.
This is an interesting point.
So when you're doing something like this, you don't need as soft as a light that you might use indoors because you have all that soft overhead light coming from the sun. So what you're trying to do is just really shape. So what we did here is really just block light on one side of my face or my wife's face, right, to add some shape. And that's the side that the camera is on. And then we put another soft light that we can control on the other side of her face or my face. So here, so that's all that's going on here. We've got the Forza 500, probably at like 20% or less, coming in here. And then we've got that negative fill on this side, blocking light from this side of my face, just to make sure I have that shape. And it's just a matter of balancing that softbox, that light, to make sure it feels right on camera. And then, of course, I pulled down a lot of the light in post on this to make it feel darker in the evening. Same thing here. And what I do like about softboxes, I don't traditionally use softboxes that often, but what I do like is that little catch light in the eye here that you get from one versus using a giant, like a 6-foot or 8-foot, like silk or quarter grid or diffusion. You may not get the exact same style of eye light, and so I do like the softboxes for that reason. So this is a 35 millimeter for both these. I actually punched it on this one a little bit in post. But these are the 35 millimeter at f2, maybe at f2.8, depending. And that's just a way of really just kind of bringing that background in and pushing everything together, giving us a little bit of compression. This was really difficult. We were chasing light the whole time. Eventually the sun did go down when we were trying to get those gimbal shots. And like this one that when we're walking up to her is actually that gimbal shot that we got at the end of the night. And I was able to save it with a little bit of noise reduction and color grading to make it really match the other shots. And the reason I really kept it in there, even though I knew that this was not going to match perfectly, was because these little fireflies here, they're like, they blink into the frame. See, there's 4 or 5 there, and then the birds in the background. I just thought it was like a really magical way of showing her for the first time, and I really liked it. And then same thing here. So if we cut this, we have just the Forza over here, just giving a little bit of kick, but nothing crazy, just because it was super dark. The sun was setting here as well. So this is basically all natural light here. We've got the lights up top still on, but this is all natural light. Just obviously added just a little bit of blue in post to make it seem even more like it's in the evening. But then the shot when we come inside, We wanted to make it look like there was an overhead light here, but without really forcing a light into the scene. And so I believe we just have a nan light, pavo tube. You can see this kind of funny rig that we have here. It's coming over my friend John's face here, and it's just pointing into the ceiling, which is bouncing off all these white walls, and it's just a little bit of a soft light coming down on my face. And we played with this for a while to get it to look natural, and the only way to do it was basically point it right into the ceiling like that, which turned out really nice. So it's just a nice soft light just kind of falling down on the top of my head there. Sometimes the simplest things are the solution. So it's just a little fill light, not a lot of direction to it, but because I'm wearing black and it's a white background, there's quite a bit of contrast in the shot. Oh yeah, we had this little bounce on the bottom. I don't know if we ended up using this. I feel like we did, so you know what? I was wrong. We actually had the nan light up top, but didn't give myself just a little bit of bounce, a little bit of eye light, so it's not completely black under my face. We did have a little 2-foot nan light bouncing up into this white card. We did also have a little light over here, but I don't know if we even used this. I think this was just one of our test setups here. So we had this little pocket 7-inch light here with some diffusion on it, just to give me a little bit of extra kick on the door this way. So maybe all that stuff was in the frame, but I feel like we ended up turning that off. This is a 24mm at like f1.4, really close to the camera. I mean, really close to the phone, just to give it kind of like David Fincher close-up, as I keep calling it. It just looks really nice. We just have that cis in focus, so you can tell the audience that I was calling my sister. But here we actually have a light, I believe a nan light over here that we just kind of played with. That's like standing tall, and that's giving that little bit of reflection on the ground here. This is probably a second light, I believe, because we have the one nan light still over top. All right, we're getting close to wrapping up here. This one, pretty simple. It's just natural daylight. I think we might have had some negative fill on one side of me, and all we actually have is real daylight outside coming through the windows, which you can see here. We're on a little bit, we have a little bit of Dana Dolly there just to do a slight push. Negative fill. Oh, so we did have the negative fill the whole time. And yeah, we just have natural daylight coming in from outside, and it just happens to be on this side of my face. And with all this white stuff in the room and with just adjusting some exposure, it looks natural, it looks nice. So you can see that the window's over here, bringing in our light on this side. It's already like somewhat soft on its own, and then we have that negative fill just out of frame, sucking up any bounce that's coming off the white wall there, giving us a little bit of shape on this side of my face. And then we do a little push on the dolly. Same thing for the close-up. We probably just brought that negative fill in a little bit more here, just to soak up any more light that was kind of hitting my face here. But still just the window light as my key light. Natural light. So I ended up reshooting this next scene by myself. And so we've got it motivated from this lamp over here, but then I actually have a nan light pavo tube right here pushing on the back side of my body, which I'll show you. Like this. So pretty simple setup for that. Just put it on a stand, and then it's just pushing down on the backside of me laying there. I have it at once again at 2700 Kelvin, so it gives that nice orange effect. And I basically kept the light on that side of the bed for all of this. For this one, I think I have 2 lights, but that same nan light's pushing the back of her neck here, and it's also hitting the walls here, adding just that full glow throughout the room. And then here, all I did was wrap that nan light all the way around, I believe. Let's see. Yeah, so I wrapped the nan light around, so where it's really hitting this wall here, and then it's probably spreading off the wall a little bit, but then it's coming directly down and hitting our faces. What did I do here? I put something in the corner there. Oh, that was for this shot here. I guess I have to give her this little rim light here. I actually had a tube down here in the corner to rim that off. And I don't normally do tubes direct. I usually have them bouncing off of something just to give them a little bit of extra softness, a little bit of less direction so it doesn't look too sourcey like I put a light there. But for this instance, it was hard when on these close-ups, I kept bouncing it and it was just bouncing all over the room and I could not get the contrast right. So in this scenario, I ended up actually putting that tube right, I ended up putting that tube right above her, pointing down this way at her face. And because it did bounce off the wall over here a little bit, it did go across these curtains, which is kind of nice, right? Because we have this like little bit of kind of like light texture, but then we also have these shadows in between the curtains. And it just brought that exposure down a lot in post to make sure it doesn't look too bright in the background, because these are white curtains, which is kind of, the white curtains are kind of it's just like the bane of our existence as cinematographers. But also, I had it up against the wall there, which is helpful because when you put up against the wall like this, it does help soften it by bouncing off the wall and wrapping it further around her face here. And then also I flagged it to make sure there wasn't too much light coming down on the curtain here, right? So this is our key light. It's wrapping around the face, but then we're making sure that there's not too much in the background here. So you can see that. We've got this nice wrap around her face, but we have this nice edge here, shadow on this side of her face, but just blocking enough off the curtains that this isn't too bright and harsh because the light is so close to it. And then same thing for my shot, same thing, that tube is just right over top here, wrapping on my face a little bit, creating contrast on this side because we've got the shadow. Practical light is also lighting up this plant here, which lends into the plant motif. And that's it. That was all the cinematography for the short film. This last shot here, all I did was just change the white balance a little bit to make it look like it was, nighttime now as the credits roll. And I believe that's a 35 millimeter just kind of shooting out the back window there. Wow, that was a lot. It's probably a long video. Let me know in the comments below if you have any questions about some of the stuff I did. Just to recap, I used the Blackmagic Pocket 6K, mostly my Canon FD lenses, the 24mm and the 35mm. I don't believe we ever went longer than that. I used the Sigma 18-35 once, the 18mm, just to get that one wide shot. And we did put a Tiffin Black Pro Mist on that shot to make sure it kind of matched the vintage lenses and wasn't too sharp. I shot everything at 6K Q3 compression, not Q0, because I just didn't think it was necessary. I didn't use any haze in this one or anything like that. And basically all I used was the Nanlite Pavo tubes, the Forza 500, their big 500 watt light, and then I used the Aperture Nova for a couple shots as well. So I want to thank Nanlite for sponsoring this video and allowing us to make this short film and providing the lights for it. So thank you, Nanlite, for that. And until next time, guys, I'm Spencer Sakurai. See ya.